I'm going to now introduce our first panel, and we have Dr. Chitra Dorai, who is the CEO and founder of Amicus Brain, and she'll probably tell you a little bit about that during her presentation, along with our two panelists, Mikey Piro and Daley Epstein. So this is all about two of the most talked about tech developments, and is it a giant leap or a passing fad? So Chitra, we'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. Wherever you are, a good day. Thank you for joining us at this conference. What we are going to do over the next 45 minutes is bring you the excitement behind the emerging technology called Web 3.0. Stylistically, it's often referred as Web 3. So Web 3 is a lot of concepts, a lot of hype. If you search for it, there's something like 15 million results on Google. So we thought we will bring a balanced perspective around this, what is real, and it makes a lot of claims. So how are we going to accomplish this? That's the goal of this session. And I am accompanied by Daley and Mikey in the session to bring this perspective. So Web 3.0, just to set the context, so just like Web 1.0, which was in the early 90s, which really made sharing information possible, but static web pages. And then came Web 2.0 during the early 2000s, where we could interact with it. And thus, e-commerce became possible. And not only that, we could create content, upload and share, and that meant the birth of the social media companies. So now the technologies are very excited about the next generation or the third generation of Web 3.0. And this third iteration is not only about read and write, but also own in a very peer-to-peer democratic manner. And that's where the cryptography and blockchain meets web technology. So what we are going to do is have Daley come in first, and she is going to describe why Web 3 matters, and what we need to know about cryptography, blockchain, and the future of the internet, because these are the underpinnings of Web 3.0. And Mikey Piro will follow Daley, and he is going to talk about Web 3.0 in greater depth, and he is also going to make sure that we walk away with a balanced perspective, why we should proceed with caution, because many of these ideas are still in nascent stage. And in case you have not looked up the biographies of Daley and Mikey, I want to just make sure that you hear about them right here. Daley is an associate at McDermott Will Emery. She has a fantastic biography. I urge you to look at the conference site and make sure that you get to know her journey. One thing I want to point out is her practice at this law firm includes prosecuting and defending blockchain and cryptography and digital asset technology. And she also works in a fintech and regulatory space. And another thing very appealing about Daley is she gives her time. Like so many of us, she gives free legal services, and that really endeared her to me when I read to founders and entrepreneurs of color to reduce systemic inequity. SheTek is all about that. And now Mikey will follow Daley. Mikey, what can I say? Mikey is a graduate of West Point and combat veteran who served active duty within the infantry and cavalry. So Mikey, thank you for your service. And he is now the COO of Club CPG and co-founder of 2 Cents Audio. So towards the end, I'm going to ask him how he manages these many roles. Just being the founder and CEO of Amicus Brain seems enormous to me. And prior to being the CEO and co-founder of these two startups, he spent his time at Meta, currently Meta, formerly Facebook. I do urge you to take a quick look at their biographies, which are available on the net. Now I'm going to invite Daley to come in and talk about why Web 3.0 matters and how it connects with blockchain and cryptography.
Hi, thank you so much, Dr. Dorai, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you everyone for being here today. I know I'm personally really excited to be here, and I'm really excited about everything that SheTek is doing. This mission is one that I am so passionate about. As a woman in the tech space, I regularly find myself the only woman on Zoom calls. And that isn't something that inherently bothers me, but it's something that I think it's really important for us to change. I think there's when you're working in an inherently male-dominated industry, it's just so important to have communities like SheTek and communities that are really built toward mentorship and raising and promoting women within the profession. So thank you to SheTek for bringing us all here today and for everything that you guys do. As Dr. Dorai mentioned, my name is Daley Epstein, and I'm an attorney at McDermott Will Emery. My focus in particular is all things crypto. So crypto, blockchain, Web3, all of those sound like buzzwords. And hopefully all of those buzzwords will have a little bit more of a deeper meaning by the time we finish up today. My training is a little bit more in traditional litigation, but traditional commercial litigation, but I chose to specialize in crypto for the same reason that I think many people here today are probably choosing to pursue a career in tech. I followed my passion. I think that a lot of times when you're trying to pick a career or you're trying to figure out what path you should go down, there's many forms, there's many ways you can go. For me, I was sitting in law school and I had these opportunities to write papers. And for example, I took a banking and financial regulation course. So you could write your papers on any topic within that ambit. And I chose to write about crypto and privacy coins. So at the time, this was many years ago at this point, at the time, my professor kind of came up to me and was like, well, Daley, please, I support your interest, but I really think you should pick a more practical topic. Crypto wasn't quite as well known at the time. It wasn't big. And I think like when you're pursuing any career, and careers in technology or careers in less commonplace spaces, it is so important to take everything with a grain of salt. Trust your gut, trust your instinct, and trust your passion. To me, I heard what he said. His job as my professor was to best prepare me for a career in the profession. And at the time, he probably had no idea. I truly didn't even see it myself that I would end up specializing in crypto as a practice area at a large law firm. But I'm a big believer that if you follow your passions and you follow your intellectual interests, you will figure out how to succeed. And I think that's something that's so important here today. So before I get into the nitty-gritty of tech, I just want to say that just kind of following your own gut and following what you're interested in is singularly one of the best ways to make it in a tech career. Okay, so without further ado, we are in the middle of what is called supposedly crypto winter. And crypto winter, to those who haven't heard that term before, is a term that essentially is used to describe the state of pricing in the crypto industry right now. So throughout the past couple of years, we'll use the time frame of the pandemic as an example. The price of Bitcoin, which we'll get to Bitcoin in a second, nearly tripled. Prices were shooting up. People were making a ton of money off crypto. And for many people who saw it as a quick way to earn money and wasn't really looking at the underlying value of the technology in the space, that was a great opportunity. There are many people who became crypto millionaires, but then when the rest of the economy and when crypto in particular kind of took a nosedive from a pricing perspective, everyone, kind of the mainstream media and many other people said, oh, well, that was nice. It's really all a scam and the prices are down and now everyone's lost a bunch of money. So this talk here today, and the reason Mikey and I were both invited to be here, was to give a balanced perspective. So one thing that's important to me and important for me to emphasize throughout the talk is I am absolutely a crypto optimist. I believe deeply in the underlying technology, and I'm excited about where crypto is going. The other thing that I want to emphasize is that this space is so new, and working in a new space can be incredibly challenging. It can be challenging if you're someone who likes structure, challenging if you're someone who likes dealing with clear answers. But on the other hand, it can also be so very exciting for someone like me who was looking for a practice area where you can really shape the law. This is kind of a dream career in several ways. So we'll get to some of that in a second. So what is crypto? So crypto or cryptocurrency is a form of digital asset, which is based on a network that's distributed across a large number of computers. And one of the key things about crypto is that it has a decentralized structure that allows it to exist outside the control of central authorities. So let's give an example of where crypto would make a change in your everyday life. So I'm on the West Coast right now, and it's about 6:15 in the morning over here. And if a coffee shop were open, I can guarantee you I would have made my way over there and bought a cup of coffee prior to this talk. The way I would have done that is I would have walked over, I would have stopped at the cashier, I would have given them my credit card to pay for the coffee. And at that point, the cashier and the credit card company are essentially creating a record of my purchase. And that is a representation of cash. And then they are giving me my coffee. And then at a later point, that amount of money that I paid for the coffee will be withdrawn from my account. And that's how that transaction occurs. But one thing that usually when we do that, we don't even think twice about it. It's the way that we're used to doing things. It happens very quickly. But one thing that we often don't think about is all of the steps that are happening along the way. Because for us, it's under a minute. I give them my card, they take it, they make the record, I move on, drink my coffee, wake up for the day. But in the interim, all of these different entities are creating records. So you have my credit card company that's creating a record of transactions in the middle. You also have my bank that's creating a record of the transaction on my side and saying, okay, well, Daley has this money, she can give it up and she's able to pay for this, and we're going to take that out later, and then they'll record that that amount was taken out. And you also have on the other side of things, the bank for the coffee shop. And so all of these different entities are what we would call central intermediaries between me and the coffee shop itself, or me and the barista who's selling me my coffee. So what crypto does is crypto removes, in a way, all of these intermediaries, and it allows people to transact faster, allows people to transact, in my opinion, what is often better. And it speeds up the process. And there's a couple of reasons why this is potentially beneficial. So one is the idea of trust. We don't really think about it, but we're trusting a lot of different central entities at the time that we're going to this coffee shop. So we're trusting that our bank is going to be accurate in its records, honest in its records. We're trusting the same thing of the other bank. We're trusting the same thing of the credit card company. We're also paying a fee. And while this fee may be nominal, it may add up over time. And depending on where you are and depending on what your financial means are, this could have an impact. So for example, you're paying a fee to the credit card company for maintaining all these kinds of records. So one of the things that blockchain technology does is, instead of having these central entities like the bank, the credit card company, and other institutions, the blockchain is, you can think of it kind of as a decentralized database that is kind of owned by everyone. It's owned by the community. And I think there's something really special about that. And I'll talk about it a little. I expect Mikey might talk about it a bit as well. And I think we're probably going to have some really good dialogue here, because the community aspect of crypto is one of the things I'm personally most excited about. But for all intents and purposes, this eliminates, crypto is amazing in that it can eliminate the need for trust. So right now we're trusting all these centralized institutions, but instead with crypto, you're essentially trusting a giant computer. And it may sound like you're kind of just shifting your trust. Okay, you went from this banking institution that's been around for a very long time, and you're shifting your trust over to this decentralized computer. But the difference here is that the computer is essentially decentralized and distributed, which, to kind of create a visual for you, think about having computers all over the world that are all working very hard to solve the same math problem. The underlying database and the underlying record is kind of built into the code and secured by the code. And really, you're kind of trusting that that is what's accurate. And without getting too technical into some of this, I think one of the really awesome things about this is the potential for a highly secure network and a highly trustable network that is essentially, it's referred to as immutable. It can't be reversed. And I'm trying to describe it well without, again, getting too technical here, but essentially the idea and one of the key components of crypto is that users are rewarded for working within the system. So you may have heard about crypto mining or crypto staking. Without getting too technical about some of these terms, the structure of the way the entire the structure of the way it all works involves people working hard to solve these problems, but you get rewarded. So everyone who's working and computing and giving kind of their assets to kind of secure the network, you're rewarded for your participation. So it's kind of, there's something beautiful about the idea that there's this like underlying trust in humanity and humanity's kind of ability to get this right. And the other thing is, because you have all these different people all over the world who are all kind of checking each other's work, so to speak, that eliminates the need for, that eliminates the likelihood of bad actors. So bad actors are less likely to come up because they essentially get kicked off the system and everybody else can kind of identify them fairly quickly. Okay, so crypto, I'm trying to be mindful of my time here, but a couple of things that are important to know about crypto. So again, if you look at crypto winter, if you look at the pricing right now, you might be jaded. You might say, oh, well, you know, that was something that was really amazing, but it's kind of hit its prime. If you think about crypto as a long-term path, as a technology that has the potential to impact so many different areas of society, you realize that it's been around for a mere 14 years, which in the grand scheme of time is not very long for something that is truly a different way of going through the internet. So here's one example. So when I woke up this morning, I put on some music to kind of wake me up, and I listened to Spotify. And I personally am a consumer of Spotify. I'm absolutely a customer. But what you might not think about on a regular basis is the percentage of revenue that goes to a creator versus the percentage of revenue that goes to Spotify. Spotify takes nearly all revenue from the creators who kind of share their music on it, and the percentages that go back to the musicians and the artists that actually created the work is incredibly low. So one thing that crypto has the potential to do outside of kind of the financial system is it has the potential to give back revenue shares to creators. And that's one of the things that I'm most excited about. I really enjoy working with clients who are kind of trying to redefine the system and really make sure that creators are able to monetize the content that they're putting out to their communities. Twitter is another example. It'll be very interesting to see how things go under Elon Musk and with the new acquisition. All that to say, up until now, content creators who put out content on Twitter make absolutely nothing from that. So the way crypto works, and there's the potential to have, there's so many different kind of opportunities within that space, NFTs in particular being one of them, but essentially you can support your creators who you value and support the musician who you heard at the coffee shop down the street by taking an ownership stake and purchasing a small portion of what they do. Or other creators, some of our clients, one of the amazing things that they do is they have these tokens, and tokens don't just have the opportunity to be a kind of a financial token. Tokens, there's also tokens that have the opportunity to allow you to participate in the ecosystems. So that's another opportunity that I really appreciate. So I think, again, going back to kind of, if you're looking to join a career in crypto, this is somewhere where I think whether you're a coder, I personally am not a coder, whether you're a coder, whether you are an attorney looking for a practice area that's really evolving and growing, I think I'm really optimistic because there's a lot of different opportunity there. And I think, especially for women, I've been really encouraged in the legal space in particular. I think generally in kind of the crypto realm, it's traditionally far more men than women, but in the legal space in particular, it's been really wonderful to see that there are a lot of women who are running practice groups at major law firms. and really kind of leaning into shaping this regulation. Crypto's fun. Crypto is a fascinating place to be. I think that with any career, I don't know, I kind of feel like these past couple of years, you've had all this VC money flowing into crypto, and there were a lot of projects that are truly just fluff, for lack of a better way to put it. There were a lot of things where the underlying technology wasn't there. The use case hadn't necessarily been proven, but people were excited about it. So I kind of go against the mainstream, and I think it's a little bit more meaningful and important to kind of be involved in crypto right now when it's not necessarily the hottest thing. Because again, if you're seeing this as a long-term opportunity, if you see the potential really far down the line, then you realize that right now, when there isn't just money flowing at every company that puts crypto on its banner, then you're really kind of weeding out the true projects and the true use cases and figuring this will be a very formidable period for crypto, in my opinion. I think that we're really going to find the best use cases, kind of some of the better platforms, and we're really going to see kind of the industry spend some time with everyone with their heads down and then come out in a really amazing place. So all this to say, I want to hand things over to Mikey in just a minute, but I highly encourage people to join this industry. I think it's a really fun place to work. It has intersections with all different other industries, everything from financial services to entertainment and creative fields, which is a really fun place to be. But most importantly, I think with this career and with any career in technology, it's just a group of optimists. It's a group of people who see the world as what it can be. People see things as how they may not be just yet, but I'm an optimist by nature, and I think those are the best types of people who work with and the people who really end up changing the world. So we're hiring in particular. If any of you are lawyers, and if any of you are lawyers with an interest in crypto, our group is incredibly busy, and I would love to talk to you more about potential opportunities. So thank you again to Dr. Dorai for moderating. Thank you to SheTek for having me, and I'll pass things over to Mikey.
Thanks, Daley. Thanks, Dr. Dorai. There are some questions here that are in the chat. One is from Chaya, so I'm just going to relay it to you and we can get this dialogue started. I just want to say thanks before I start for the opportunity to speak here. It's not lost on me that I'm the only guy that is speaking, and in an attempt to not mansplain, I'm going to try and keep this a lot more conversational. And you did a fantastic job outlining, so don't go on mute yet. You're going to still be on the hot seat here for a bit. So Chaya reads or asks the question for explaining, she says, thanks, first of all, and then what are the legal implications that any cryptocurrency buyer should be aware of? And I have some follow-ups for you in terms of some practical steps for folks, but what are legal implications?
Sure. So one thing I will say is I have to give the traditional disclaimer of nothing I say should be construed as legal advice. You guys are not my client. Maybe in another time that would be the case, but as for now, everything is not the opinions of my firm and not formal legal advice. That to say, I think kind of speaking more generally, legal implications that any cryptocurrency buyer should be aware of. So one thing in particular that's really interesting in this space, and that is an issue that I analyze kind of certainly on a weekly basis, usually on a daily basis in some capacity, is whether or not a cryptocurrency is a security. So right now, where the United States is kind of, our regulatory system was built for traditional finance. It was not built for crypto. And I think that is something that we've been trying to work on for a while. I am optimistic about the fact that the government seems to really be cluing in on that now and really trying to understand it. But it's also something that's allowed us, because we haven't innovated and because our systems haven't really evolved to incorporate traditional finance, we're losing a lot of, I end up telling clients to incorporate in the Caymans, which is not what I want to do. You're losing American innovation, but sometimes it's what you have to. So,
so Daley, thank you. You laid out a very good foundation on blockchain and crypto. I hope many of the people who are attending are inspired to pursue that path like you did. I want to bring it back to Web 3.0. What I took away is that while people often look at blockchain and crypto as just a cryptocurrency, a cash alternative, there is so much more to it that it actually is a technological foundation for this whole decentralization and peer-to-peer token-based economies, right? Which takes us back to Web 3.0. And I want to ask Mikey, so given that foundation, Mikey, what are you seeing? Where is Web 3.0? Is it just a collection of ideas? And what are we seeing in the next generation, construction of the next generation of the web?
Well, thank you for teeing it up so well. Especially thank you to Daley for teeing it up so well with the foundation of what's happening. I'm going to recap a couple of things that you've already covered, kind of in my own language, because I've written some notes here and it helps the flow of my story. And so I'm just going to quickly recap what I believe Web3 is and sort of what has been defined. And you captured it very quickly as we entered. So in the history of the web as we know it, Web 1 was purely reading. So you launched your browser. If you're like me and you were old enough to and fortunate enough to have a computer back in the early 80s or so, you used a dial-up connection, you connected to a bulletin board, you pulled down information and read your email. Web 2, which really was a foundation of how connectivity and mobility allowed us to read and write. So you could text back and forth quickly, you can share photos, so you could write from one device to the other with ease. And the other part that you've talked about for Web3 is that you read and write and own. And we talk about ownership, which is, I'm thankful there's a lot of attorneys on this call because it's really still taking a lot of shape in terms of what that means. We're really talking about like assets and also your identity. And so ownership of assets is pretty straightforward. It's like, I have a car, that's mine. I have a book, that's mine. But ownership of your identity, especially in today's day and age, is a little bit more murky. And as you know, we're on a Zoom, this is a digital call. We're communicating through technology that more and more is happening online. We're less in person. It's really important to understand how your identity both shows up on the larger web, but also what parts of it are yours specifically and what parts you're going to share forward. So if we took a turn down, what does ownership mean, especially in the sense of what digital assets are, we can look at music. And Daley did a great job of going through a couple of explainers, and I just want to double click into it a bit more. If you were also around in the days of Napster, you were able to pull down music. You were not pulling that down legally, and you were pulling down effectively a copy of the music, but you were enjoying it yourself, and the royalties were not spread anywhere. We now have streaming, which allows for it to be played on a one shot. But again, as Daley pointed out, the artists themselves are not necessarily reaping the benefit of that. And so what does it mean to really like own something? And that's where the blockchain technology and this open verifiable method of agreement, which is the proof and the trust that Daley talked about, really comes into play. I'll then turn it slightly and say, like, I am a proud dad of 3 kids. They play online in all sorts of fashions. And fashion is the key thing here, because specifically on like games like Fortnite, they have these skins. And the skins are effectively their identity. They don't do anything to enhance the game, but they're important for how my children show up online to represent themselves. Right now, all of the games and all of the information reside with the creator of the game. And what Web3 and what blockchain will allow us to do, and is starting to happen, is that instead of the ownership and the communities that are building these games have to opt into it, instead of the ownership residing with Epic Games or Microsoft, it would actually reside with my children when they buy the skins. And believe me, I would be very wealthy if I was able to resell all of their skins. So those skins represented as a piece of the blockchain, which we'll get into the kind of the differences in, you know, what types of crypto and fungible and non-fungible tokens, but that's an important piece of their identity. And it also is important for them in terms of ownership if they choose to sell it later. And so we're moving towards where these larger tech companies or any tech company has ownership over something, is providing a service where you can purchase and own it. And again, circling back to identity, it's specifically important in that there are certain parts of your identity that are not for sale. Like, as much as I think some graduates would love to sell their degrees afterwards, I would not be able to, and I would not want to sell my diploma from West Point and all of my degrees. Same thing, I believe, with Daley and her hard-fought and hard-earned law degrees. So those are instances where your identity is super important. And if you think about the piece of paper that hangs on the wall, for me, I will constantly be updating it on the web. If I fill out a job application, if I fill out something to purchase a house, but that really can live as a digital document, along with my health records, along with a lot of other instances of my identity that lives in both the real world and online. And why that's important is that right now, my identity is like all over the internet, held in many different places because of my web traffic and cookies that are in my browser, or just data leaks or any sort of information. And so moving to something that's encrypted, like cryptocurrencies and are, but also moving to a point where I can selectively share parts of my identity and opt into this experience, it's super important for us to, as a society, move this way. It takes into consideration a lot more privacy concerns. It takes into consideration that if I wanted to ideally purchase a house, if I wanted to refinance every 6 months, I'm filling out the same paperwork every 6 months. But if I were to have all of my identity that I'm in control of to selectively share briefly and instantly and securely with the lender or multiple lenders, the process gets a lot easier, but it's also, I understand where my data is going and where it's not. So we're spending all this time online. We have this part of our identity. And so why does this matter? It matters because, as I've outlined, like, all of our time is being spent online, and the kids that are coming up today, my kids specifically, have their presence being formed in Discord groups and chat groups, and their online presence is important to them for how they interact socially, and sort of how they like flex their online capabilities. Now, money and assets, like Daley already outlined it, it's fast and it's secure, and the technology has proven it works. There are not all of these folks that are in crypto because it's a farce, but there are some risks and there are things that you need to be careful of. I'm going to divert shortly into, like, what does that actually mean? It's like, well, if you're online right now and you want to go into cryptocurrency, you have to procure a wallet. It's a digital online wallet, and it's kind of actually just a fancy name for a very long cryptographic string that is your identity. And you can have multiples of these. Those strings then interact with networks, of which there are a lot of them. The main drivers of value right now are Bitcoin. I'm personally a big fan of Ethereum as well. And all these names, again, there's a lot of them. There was a point in the late 2010s where the ICO, the initial coin offerings, were happening. Lots of people got scammed. Lots of those coins are worth nothing or close to nothing. And so this is part of the cautionary tale of, like, it matters to understand it, but the experience right now with cryptocurrency is, quite frankly, awful. And as an entrepreneur and as a person who's building on Web3 technologies, the experience and the feeling we get from things is really important, because it will then give us the confidence that things are working correctly, but also it needs to be cognizant that there are scammers all over the place. Like, we all have spam in our email. It's just Google and others have done a good job of getting rid of most of it. We're still early days in crypto, and so a lot of that is breaking through. And if you're not savvy enough, unfortunately, because of this irreversible nature of transactions, you can really, like, lose everything. So the crypto community that I'm really proud to be a part of is called Club CPG. Club CPG is a collection of builders. And so as an entrepreneur, I love interacting with, as Daley had said again, this optimism, people who are really building the next wave of Web3. And Club CPG's purpose is to advance a more innovative and equitable future for Web3, which for me, the value set is really important, and it's really underpinning why I'm working on this as well. I strongly believe in the concepts that are espoused by Club CPG, and I'm really thankful. If Sherry's listening, hey Sherry, I want to give a shout out and thankful for one of my mentors as I've progressed through my career, and she's helped me tremendously in a lot of different ways.
Mikey and Daley, which industries are being on the cutting edge here? Which ones are there companies that are building Web 3.0 compliant technology services?
I can take this and then I'll toss it to Daley. Just this past month, NFT services have been launched by Starbucks, Nike, Adidas. Meta just launched yesterday that they are introducing a way for folks in Instagram to sell their art through the blockchain. And so there's a lot of interest here. And there are dozens of other companies that are all doing this quietly. Starbucks in particular is taking what is a very profitable business for them, which is their Starbucks Rewards and app, and they are making an NFT ecosystem and a reward system that is built on NFTs and the blockchain. That is a very bold move, but also one that opens up where your Starbucks points sort of were languishing, and now there's a whole new marketplace for them to be traded. But Daley, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. One of the things that I do in my practice is help companies launch NFT marketplaces or help with regulatory issues surrounding NFTs. But I think to Mikey's point, he just mentioned a lot of very well-known household names. And 2 years ago, those would not have been names that you would have thought of in connection with crypto or the metaverse or NFTs. I think for me, one of the key takeaways there is that it's really indicative of the fact that crypto is here to stay. And I agree with Mikey that the user experience right now, as a general rule, is not great. But all this corporate commitment to figuring it out and non-corporate commitment, I think you're seeing commitment is kind of the theme, and that is something I'm excited about. So,
yeah, well said. Looks like Web 3.0 will give us a better sense of control of our own identity, as well as privacy of data. I think having lived through 1 and 2 and now awaiting 3, we know we have ceded control of our information to big companies for the sake of free services. And that ought to change. And I'm so encouraged that Web 3.0. There is a question for you guys. What role does the metaverse play in Web 3? Any one of you?
I can take it as well to start. A lot. I think, as we've alluded to here, like we're online right now, and folks, some folks consider Zoom a metaverse of sorts, in that you're assembling online. There are certain rules that you have to abide by. There are certain ways that you can show up. And a metaverse is really a digital overlay of what would be in real life. Those can be games like Minecraft, or my daughter plays Roblox very sparingly. Other games that are there as well. It can also be the things that Meta itself has launched, which is the Horizons or other online spaces. The role, I think, becomes increasingly important because of this concept of ownership, and also because we're already seeing folks kind of self-organize on the web into their very unique interests. Reddit, who also just launched a metaverse, or not a metaverse, but launched an NFT offering. Those are just folks online in a forum that are super interested in very niche things, that assemble to discuss things that they love or that interest them, or just to find things that are funny. And so we're already sort of assembling online in this way. So it continues to grow. I think the technology that is visionary for augmented reality and for virtual reality is really interesting. And I think ownership of those types of assets, something that is in augmented reality, where you're walking on the street with a pair of glasses that are enabled, and I'm wearing, something generic, but through an augmented reality, I actually am flexing something extremely rare and important to other folks who can see it. I believe that's coming, not only because it's cool, but also because the other parts of augmented reality, where if I'm actually wandering through some place in China and I'm getting things translated, which you could do now through your phone, but is done in a more real-time way through glasses, enhances my experience because I do not speak Mandarin, nor do I read it. So I think the metaverse is an extremely important part of Web3 as the web continues to evolve, and as data and as chipsets and batteries get better and faster and more concise in their how we can wear them. That's really a really important part, I think, of Web3 as we continue to move forward. Daley, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think Mikey made some really amazing points, and I generally agree. I think it's interesting. So I'm kind of someone who walks on both sides. I'm absolutely a technology optimist, and I think that the fact that we're able to all be here on Zoom right now from all over the world, that is so incredibly special. And without technology and without being in this kind of internet world, we wouldn't be able to do that right now. All that to say, I see plenty of circumstances where I personally prefer being in person. And I think there, at the end of the day, isn't a substitute for that for certain things. So then you go back to the metaverse, and the question sometimes is, well, is the metaverse people trying to substitute real life, or people trying to find an internet life? And that is so not what it's about. I think one of the things that I'll just try and be brief, and I think what I'm most excited about in terms of opportunities in the metaverse, in addition to the things that Mikey mentioned, is the opportunity for training. So, for example, doctors make crazy high stakes decisions in the middle of surgeries all the time. And in order to train for that, they sometimes in medical school work on cadavers. There are different training opportunities, but it's hard to really simulate exactly what that's like. The metaverse and AR and VR opportunities can help train, are being used to help train doctors and to help reduce error rates, which overall will help in terms of health in our systems. And I think that kind of training and opportunity and the potential to make our society better and safer in that way is so huge. So that's one area that I'm particularly excited about in terms of the metaverse.
Thank you, Daley. I think Elaine would like us to wrap up so that we can catch up on the schedule. So if you don't mind, there's one more couple of questions there. If you could perhaps use the chat, Daley and Mikey, and answer those, that would be awesome. While I hand it back to, thank you so much. So in wrap up, I hope we walked away with, all of you walked away with what the excitement is all about in around Web 3.0. And it is underpinned by the crypto and the blockchain of 40 plus years, 14 years of technology, not 40, that would be AI, more than that. So thank you both, Mikey and Daley. I know you're, joined us from the West Coast. A very bright and early morning to you. Appreciate, offering up your thoughts and, sharing what is real. And I think it's a space that is waiting to be seen. What will turn out? What would be the killer app of this space? So back to you, Elaine.
Sure. Thank you, Chitra. I know that you're a little under the weather and you're joining us also. So thank you. And yes, Mikey and Daley, thanks for joining us so early from California.